Welcome back to the deep dive. So get this, we're going to be looking into the future. Well, at least for Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical giant.
Sounds intriguing.
It is, right. And we've got a really interesting article to help us with this little peek into the future. It's from The Motley Fool.
The Motley Fool. Always
Yeah.
a good source for investment insights.
Exactly. And this article, it's hot off the press from March 2nd, 2025. It lays out a possible scenario for where Eli Lilly might be in 5 years.
So we're talking medications, market trends, the whole shebang.
Yep. And by the end of this deep dive, we should have a pretty good idea of whether or not Eli Lilly's stock is something worth considering.
Sounds like a plan. Let's dive in.
All right. First off, the article points out just how incredibly well Eli Lilly has been doing these past 5 years. Like, their stock, it's seriously outperformed the market.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and get this. In 2024 alone, their revenue skyrocketed, like a 32% increase, bringing them to a grand total of, wait for it, $45 billion.
$45 billion. That's not just good, that's phenomenal.
Right. So naturally, the big question is, what's driving this crazy growth?
Yeah, is it sustainable? That's what I'd want to know.
Well, the article jumps right into that. It seems a lot of this success boils down to 2 key medications. Mounjaro for diabetes, and then there's Zepbound, which is for weight management.
Okay, I've heard of those. They're both pretty new, right?
Yeah, they were both launched less than 3 years ago. And the interesting part is they both use the same active ingredient, tirzepatide.
Tirzepatide, huh? So is that what's raking in all the cash?
You bet. In 2024 alone, those 2 medications brought in a whopping $16.5 billion.
$16.5 billion. It's crazy how much money these blockbuster drugs can generate.
It really is. But the article also points out something interesting. Analysts initially predicted peak annual sales of $25 billion for tirzepatide, but now it seems like that estimate might have been a bit too low.
You think so?
I mean, with the way things are going, who knows what the ceiling is for these medications? But here's the thing. Eli Lilly isn't just relying on these 2 drugs. They've got a whole bunch of other medications making waves, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, there's Kisunla. It's used for Alzheimer's disease, and projections have it generating something like $2.5 billion by 2030.
That's huge.
It is. Plus, they've got Jaypirca, which is used in cancer treatment.
Okay.
And then there's Omvo, which is for ulcerative colitis.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, huh? Seems like a smart move. Spreading the risk, catering to different healthcare needs.
Absolutely. And it seems to be working because Eli Lilly is projecting some pretty impressive growth numbers. For 2025 alone, they're expecting a 32% jump in sales.
Wow, 32%. That's bold.
It is. And one expert quoted in the article even went as far as saying that their annual revenue growth might not dip below 15% at any point before 2030.
That's a pretty optimistic outlook. Makes
Yeah.
you wonder what's fueling that confidence. Is it just those medications we talked about, or is there something else going on?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. It turns out Eli Lilly has a couple of potential game changers in their pipeline. We're talking about 2 new weight loss medications, orforglipron and retatrutide.
Weight loss medications, huh? That's a hot market right now.
For sure. And these 2, they're both currently in phase 3 studies. And here's the kicker. They're not just targeting weight loss. They're looking at treating other conditions too, like diabetes and even sleep apnea.
Interesting. So they're really trying to hit multiple targets with these new medications.
Exactly. And it's this retatrutide that seems to have everyone buzzing. It's what they call a triple agonist, meaning it basically mimics the action of 3 different hormones.
3 hormones. That's a lot. What are they?
Okay, so it's GLP-1, GIP, and GCG. Now remember tirzepatide, the one in Mounjaro and Zepbound? Well, that one only mimics 2 of those hormones. So theoretically, retatrutide could be even more effective.
I see. So it's like tirzepatide, but potentially even more powerful.
Exactly. Now, of course, we have to wait for the clinical trial results to be sure, but early projections are suggesting it could generate something like $5 billion in sales by 2030.
$5 billion. That's a serious chunk of change.
Right. And then there's orforglipron, the other weight loss medication we mentioned. Some estimates have that one bringing in as much as $8.3 billion by 2030.
Wow. So between these new medications and the ones already on the market, Eli Lilly is poised to make a killing in the weight management market.
It seems that way, yeah. But hold on, there's more.
More.
Yeah.
What else could they possibly have up their sleeve?
Well, it turns out they're also working on some other really fascinating projects. One that caught my eye is a gene therapy for deafness.
Gene therapy for deafness. That's incredible.
It is, right? It could completely change how we treat hearing loss.
Seriously groundbreaking stuff. So we've got new weight loss meds, gene therapy. What else?
Well, on top of all that, they're also looking at expanding the use of their existing medications, getting approval to use them for other conditions.
Ah, I see. So kind of like repurposing existing drugs. That's a clever strategy. Less risky than developing something completely new and probably faster too.
Exactly. So with all this innovation and potential for growth, you've got to wonder, is Eli Lilly's stock a sure bet?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But there is one thing that might give some investors pause. Eli Lilly's forward price-to-earnings ratio, or PE ratio for short, it's currently sitting at 39.
Okay. And what does that mean exactly?
Well, to put it into perspective, the average for the healthcare industry is 17.7. So Eli Lilly's ratio is significantly higher.
So that means their stock is overvalued. Should we be worried?
Not necessarily. The article actually argues that Eli Lilly's impressive growth, in terms of both revenue and earnings, justifies this higher PE ratio. They're essentially growing much faster than many of their competitors, which, from an investment standpoint, could make them more attractive, even with that higher valuation.
Okay, I see. So it's not necessarily a red flag, but something to consider. So bottom line, what's the verdict? Is Eli Lilly a good investment or not?
Well, according to the Motley Fool expert, they seem to think so. They believe that Eli Lilly's stock is fairly valued and that it's likely to outperform the market over the next 5 years. And the reasoning? Basically, it boils down to their innovative pipeline, their strong revenue growth, and their leadership position in key areas like weight management. But of course, like with any investment, it's crucial to do your own research and consider multiple perspectives before making any decisions.
Couldn't agree more. We're just giving you the information. You got to make the call. But before we move on, I'm curious, what stood out to you so far? What's got you thinking?
Well, honestly, it's just incredible to see a company as established as Eli Lilly showing this kind of growth. It's like they've managed to capture the energy of a startup, but with the resources and stability of a giant. That's pretty remarkable, wouldn't you say?
It really is, and it makes you wonder, how long can they keep this up? Because the article also pointed out something important. A lot of Eli Lilly's dominance in the diabetes and weight management markets, it hinges on tirzepatide.
Right, right. And you know that once competitors see that kind of success, they're going to come out with their own versions. It's inevitable.
Absolutely. So the question is, can Eli Lilly stay ahead of the curve? Can they keep innovating and developing new medications that maintain their edge?
Yeah, because if they can't, this incredible growth we're seeing, it might not last forever.
Exactly. So what do you think? Do they have what it takes to stay on top?
Well, their pipeline with potential blockbusters like retatrutide and orforglipron suggests they're not just sitting back and watching the competition catch up. They're actively developing new medications that could potentially be even more effective than what's currently available.
That's a good point. Plus, they've got those label expansions in the works, too. Getting approval to use existing medications for additional conditions, that could be a significant revenue booster.
Definitely. It's a smart strategy, especially if those approvals come through for conditions with large patient populations.
So it seems like they've got a multi-pronged approach to maintaining their growth, wouldn't you say? Developing new medications, expanding the use of existing ones, and trying to stay ahead of the competition in key therapeutic areas.
I agree. And it's this combination of factors that makes Eli Lilly such a fascinating company to follow. It's not just about the financial aspects, though. Think about the potential impact these medications could have on healthcare as a whole.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? If these medications prove as effective as they seem, we could see a major shift in how we treat conditions like diabetes, obesity, and even sleep apnea.
And remember, we're not just talking about managing symptoms here. We're potentially talking about addressing the underlying causes of these conditions. That's a huge deal.
Absolutely. It's not just about weight loss. It's about improving overall health and well-being.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the bigger picture. These innovations from companies like Eli Lilly, they have the potential to transform healthcare on a societal level.
That's a really important point. It's not just about individual health. It's about impacting the overall health and well-being of entire populations.
Precisely. And that's why it's so crucial to stay informed, to engage in thoughtful conversations, and to advocate for policies that ensure these advancements benefit everyone, not just a select few.
So, dear listener, what are your thoughts? Do you see Eli Lilly as a potential investment opportunity? Or are you still on the fence? What additional information would you need to feel confident in making a decision?
I think that's a great question for our listeners to ponder. We've explored a lot of information today, but there's always more to learn. And ultimately, the decision of whether or not to invest in Eli Lilly, that's a personal one. But hopefully, This deep dive has provided you with the knowledge and insights you need to make an informed choice.
Yeah, it is fascinating to see that kind of growth from a company that's already so big.
It makes you wonder, like, how long can they actually keep this up?
Yeah, especially because, like the article said, a lot of their success comes from tirzepatide in the diabetes and weight management market. But what happens when other companies start making similar medications?
Oh yeah, for sure. Competition is going to come when there's this much money to be made. But Eli Lilly seems to be thinking ahead with their pipeline.
Yeah, they do seem to be on top of it.
With stuff like retatrutide and orforglipron, like, they're not just waiting around.
Right, and we can't forget about those label expansions either. Getting approval to use existing medications for new conditions could really boost their revenue.
Yeah, and it's usually a quicker process than developing a brand new medication.
So it sounds like Eli Lilly has a pretty solid plan to keep growing. New medications, new uses for old medications, and staying ahead of the competition.
That's a good summary. But their impact is bigger than just money,
Mhm.
right? Like, think about how these medications could change healthcare.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to think about. Like, if these medications are as effective as they seem, we could be looking at a whole new way of treating diabetes, obesity, even sleep apnea.
We're already starting to see a shift in how we think about weight management, moving beyond just lifestyle changes and adding in effective medications.
That's a really important point because for a lot of people, lifestyle changes alone aren't enough. These medications could really improve people's lives.
And it's not just about weight loss either. It's about targeting the root causes of these metabolic diseases.
So it's not just managing the symptoms, it's about getting to the source of the problem.
Exactly. And that's where the real potential of these medications lies.
It's exciting to think about the big picture here. The potential for a major shift in how we think about and treat these chronic diseases.
Absolutely. Pharmaceutical innovations, like the ones from Eli Lilly, have the power to transform healthcare on a large scale.
So that brings us back to the big question, is Eli Lilly a good investment?
Well, based on this Motley Fool article, it seems like they've got a bright future. They're leading the way in innovation in some really important areas. They've got a great track record, and their pipeline suggests they've got even more big things coming.
But of course, everyone should do their own research before investing.
Absolutely. This article is just one piece of the puzzle. We have to consider everything.
So what do you think, listener? Are you starting to see Eli Lilly as a potential investment opportunity, or are you not convinced yet?
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the numbers, but it's important to remember that these medications could have a real impact on people's lives.
Oh, absolutely. Like, just imagine if we had a truly effective treatment for Alzheimer's.
That would be huge.
Not just for the people living with the disease, but also for their families and caregivers.
And for people struggling with obesity, these new medications could be life-changing. Reaching a healthy weight can reduce the risk of so many health problems.
Right. It's about improving overall well-being.
Right.
But we have to remember that medication is just one part of the solution. These are complex conditions.
Yeah, it's not a magic bullet. But having these effective medications as part of a comprehensive treatment plan could make a world of difference, for sure. So where do we go from here? What should we be watching for in the next few years as these medications and technologies continue to evolve?
That's a good question. What do you think?
Well, one thing that always comes to mind is the regulatory landscape.
Yeah.
The approval process for new medications can be pretty complicated.
It can take years.
And there's always a chance that a promising drug might run into some unexpected obstacles.
Yeah, that's true. And even if a medication gets approved, there's still the question of access and affordability. Will everyone who needs these treatments be able to get them?
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that these innovations are available to everyone, not just a select few.
Absolutely. And another thing to watch for is research into the long-term effects of these medications. We know they're safe and effective in the short term, but we need more data to understand their long-term impact.
That's a good point. Ongoing monitoring and research are going to be really important to make sure these medications are both safe and effective over time.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Eli Lilly's future, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're living in a time of incredible innovation in pharmaceuticals. Companies like Eli Lilly are pushing the boundaries of what's possible and developing new treatments that have the potential to really change how we approach healthcare.
It's definitely an exciting time to be following these developments. And as we've been discussing, staying informed and engaging in these conversations is so important.
It is, because the future of healthcare is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play.
Well said. That brings us to the end of our deep dive. We hope you enjoyed this look into the world of pharmaceuticals and the amazing possibilities that lie ahead. Until next time, stay curious.